Greetings and welcome back to Switch to Linux. We have another fun little Friday, or was it Saturday stream? Yeah, what day is it? I don't even know anymore. It's getting that bad these days, huh? Anyway, I hope you guys are all doing well today. We are, of course, I've had a number of people ask me to respond to Luke Smith's Minimalist Vanlife video. The hang up for quite a while is, where do I put it? Obviously I have a van life channel, which many of you still may not know about, where we talk about traveling and tips and van life and stuff. And then, of course, you could put it on the Switch to Linux channel, and then I'll invariably get the, what does this have to do with Linux? Which I get from time to time. And so I kind of, everybody that was asking me to talk about the video, though, all of those came from the Switch to Linux channel. So we're going to go ahead and put it here. And of course, we will shamelessly promote the Van Life channel. So I do have a Van Life channel. It is called Tux Traveler. Haha, Tux. See, it's tied into Linux. The van is white and black, and it's Tux. So, you know. But I have a number of videos over here talking about everything from various travels to technical things. How do you build a laptop charger into your RV or van or whatever house battery. And here's the cool thing about the van life is, if nothing else, it's teaching me how to live off-grid successfully. So when you get out there and want to experience life and power down situation where the electric grid all fizzles out and all this kind of stuff, because it's going to happen. They're already issuing warnings it's going to happen this summer. People are going to lose power. I probably won't. I'll be fine, because I'm learning how to live off grid. When I move out of the van and back into someplace else, how do I set up a DC power system by where I can run my computers and most of my life off of DC power, for example? Because notice all of these new sustainable energy, which aren't really all that sustainable energy stuff, most of it does push DC currents. So I do some technical stuff. I do quite a bit of travel stuff. I talk about how do you cook in a small space. So we do a little bit of cooking type stuff, little maintenance projects, seeing odd things out the window, going to places like the anarchist zone of Slab City. So we get a chance to explore and experiment and see the country and the world while at the same time staying in a van. So this kind of brings us to Luke Smith's video here about, his video is titled, "Is Minimalist Living in a Van a Good Plan?" is what his video is. And I downloaded the copy so we didn't have to stream, download, fight commercial breaks and things like that. I went ahead and downloaded it here, so we will watch this and have a brief discussion. Before we do that, whoa, wrong button. Let me go ahead and check up on comments really briefly. If anybody has, this is a great place if you have van life questions. Go ahead and throw them in there, and I will go ahead and get to any of those. I do have Showcase behind me. This is a solar kettle. I used this to boil some water this morning. They're about $80 or so, and it boils about, it says it's 3 cups of water. I think it's actually closer to 2.5. Just based on everything that I'm doing. But it works well. Right now, it's not super sunny, and I'm in a little bit further north, and so it took about 2 hours to get water pretty near boiling. I've seen it boil water in as little as about 45 minutes in the past. So that's that. Of course, we have backup power supplies and things like that. This is AC, DC, backup power and things. And so there's lots of fun stuff that you learn in van life that will be applicable to other areas of life as well. And that's why one of the things, but we're getting a little too far ahead of ourselves. The first questions I see, is it legal to number 1 and number 2 outside of van during van life? It depends on where you are. National park, that is never acceptable. National forest, it may or may not be, dependent on where you are and the specific rules and regulations of that place. Your own private land, it's up to the people who owns the place. Generally, if you're number twoing out just outside of the van, you have to dig a hole. So we all carry shovels around. What is almost always legal is to do your business in a bag and throw the bag in the trash can. If that were not legal, nobody could throw away their diapers for their babies. And so that is, those are the various options. Overall, I have very few issues with that. Blackworm says, yes, he is. Luke is right about everything. We'll see about that. All right. Bobby Baloney, to be fair, nobody I've seen is trying to popularize the van life stuff, even does it close to the travel Tom does. If you're talking about the level of travel, correct. And that's one of the points we're going to get into in the video. In fact, I did have video notes and I forgot to get them really close to me. Let me go ahead and get my video notes close to me. Just so I can have some ideas, although we'll kind of start and stop and I'll comment throughout. It'll take us a while to get through this 9-minute video, I'm pretty sure. Let's see. Raz Review's been ducking cat toys all day. Hates the reaction laser pointer. Great beard, man. I've been thinking about shaving it off, especially since it is hot right now. I don't know. Most people say, man, that's amazing. It does actually get in my way. It is somewhat annoying, things like that. So just use cell phone for internet. So internet is such a weird issue. And depending on what you're doing and how you're doing it, since I work in YouTube videos and I do a lot of web design, I need to have better consistent internet. Now I'm actually using the type of IoT modem that you'd install in an ATM to make sure you have an always on connection. Of course, I can toggle it on and off. It uses cell towers, and my particular one is an Airlink LX40. They cost about $300, and one device can be flashed with firmware for either AT&T, T-Mobile, or Verizon. So you can set them up however you want. That's what I'm using. I find that generally reliable in most of the country. There's a few little hiccups here and there. Starlink is coming on as an option. Now, I did speak to some people with Starlink the other day, and they said it's horrible because the bandwidth is good, but it takes so much power, it's not practical for a van lifer to be able to use Starlink. I was watching some videos from a Canadian YouTuber yesterday. He's actually reporting about half of the power consumption on his. He was only getting between 30 and 50 watts versus the people I was talking to, real world watt usage up to 85, 90, 100. I think the difference is the people I was talking to this week, they might have had one of the older dishes, which do have a higher power draw than one of the newer dishes. And that might be the difference. But still, 30 to 50 watts of power for internet is a lot. It's good in that it can give you internet in places you otherwise would not. But again, it does have negatives. If you don't have a clear view of the sky, you can't use it. If you have an aversion to invasive apps on your devices, you'll have an issue with it. So there's give and take in every option. I personally find cellular right now is the best. I get better up and down rates than I got when I had Comcast and in my apartment. So the problem is, of course, I'm metered, so I only have 150 gigs. The other thing you can do is you can get a little MiFi chip. They're not as good because they don't get particularly good internet, particularly if your van is built well and mine is built well. It kind of creates a Faraday box that will block some cell signals from inside the van. And so figuring out where to get that, and then do you want to connect everything to Wi-Fi? And then, of course, you can use phone hotspots, assuming you have a carrier that allows you to do that. Let's see. Greetings, violinist. Aram says, don't shave, just trim it. That's the other option, is I could just trim it, make it look all nice and neat. I need to be in public places here soon, so I might just do that. Form a ZZ Top tribute band. Well, my mother's boyfriend has a beard that goes down to his waist, so, let's see. We just another great drummer named Beard. There you go. Java Man. Missed the start of the adventure. Why did you decide to do this? Did you sell your home? I was renting prior to this. And let's see. Do I want to get into that here or now? Let's go ahead and get into that now. So I spent the last 20 years in youth mentoring. It's something I just don't generally talk about, because generally you don't talk about the kids that you're mentoring at the time you're mentoring them, and usually don't afterwards anyway. I've mentored, I think a total 5 kids directly, and then easily 30 or 40 based on friends and other situations and things like that. Some of them were through official programs, some of them were not. And the last kid I was mentoring is now 22, and right about the time he turned 21, he was getting ready on his own life. He's ready to launch out. I said, all right, I'm not taking on any more kids to mentor in my spare time anymore. And so what I'm going to do now is I want to see the rest of the country. So this kind of ties into one of Luke's premises that we will get to. So we'll expand on that little portion of it a little bit later. But for me, it was a goal to do that. I know what my costs were. I knew what my break-even point was. And basically, as far as the van itself, it's really about a three-year break even. 3 years of living in the van is going to be the exact same cost analysis as 3 years renting an apartment. So if I stay in the van 5 years, I will have beat the rental market by 2 years, and that's before all the rents go up. So we'll see what you can do with that. You can travel now with T-Mobile Home Internet. Incorrect. We looked into that, and that relies very tightly on what they're calling like the 5G stuff, and even in cities, it can almost never be used. The T-Mobile home internet right now is a scam. Luke Smith thinks he's right. We'll see. We'll see what he says. Let's go ahead. We got to the bottom of the comments here. So let's go ahead and start in on the actual reaction portion. I put in my headphones so I can listen and hear. And we're just going to start it and stop it and start it and stop it a lot. So right now my notes are like the first 2 minutes, but we'll probably stop a few times in that period of time. So let's go ahead and get started.
All right. Van life. Is it based or cringe? Mobile life. Living in a car. Is that stupid? Let's talk about that. So I don't have an email that I printed out that I'm responding to in this video, but this is a question I get pretty often. So I figure I might as well knock them all out of the park in this one. A lot of people ask me, well, if I want to live self-sufficiently, or at least, no one's perfectly self-sufficient, but if I want to move more in that direction, is it a good idea to live in my car, in a camper, in, some kind of mobile thing? All right. I get that kind of question a lot. And I will tell you, when I was a kid, when I was like a teenager or whatever, I was always thinking, my mindset has always been, how can I live using the least amount of money? Okay. All
right, well, we're going to stop there for now. So he starts on with talking about living in your car, your vehicle, your van, your truck, your RV, whatever else. And then I like his breakdown here at the very beginning where he's talking here about specifically when I was a kid, I've thought about how can I live with the least versus a lot of people like how can I make the most money. And I completely relate to Luke Smith in that level, in that I absolutely am the same way. I do not want an elaborate and complicated life. In fact, right now I think my life is overly complicated even still. I got it down to some simple parts and then I got more complicated parts. Right now I think I'm still incredibly too busy figuring out what to get rid of, because the things I would like to get rid of are the things that pay the bills, but the things that don't pay the bills are the things I would like to do. So it produces this giant disorganized mess in my head, which is a daily battle. What he's kind of talking about is living in a way in a more simple manner. Now he's going to get into using the term minimalism here, and I think he's applying it wrong. So let's go ahead and get in here what he has to say about that.
That's always been, like, a lot of people are like, let me make a lot of money. I've always been like, how can I live in as little as possible? That's been my mindset, right? So I often thought about, hey, could I live in my car? Could I not buy land? Could I not buy a house? Could I get by with that, just living in a car or station wagon or something like that, something with a little bit more room? Okay. Now, and a lot of millennials love this. They're like, oh, dude, mobile life. This is so tiny houses, dude. Oh, this is so awesome. But the thing is, I think it's mostly kind of if you live like that at all, it's going to be a very brief phase. I'll just tell you that. And it'll end up being a phase much more expensive than you think. Now, if you want to live a more or less self-sufficient lifestyle, it's impossible to do it on the road. It's impossible to do it in any kind of van or anything like that.
All right, let's stop there, actually. I thought he was getting into the minimalism stuff earlier, but I couldn't spot it in my notes. We'll cross that road when it comes to it, because I want to stop at this premise here. To lower your costs, does living in your vehicle cost more, cost less? there are a lot of factors that go into that. If you already own your vehicle and you are doing mostly just local living and you live somewhere where you can legally park without being a homeless vagabond or somebody who is an eyesore for the community, it is infinitely cheaper. Even if you're traveling around, not necessarily in a huge countrywide loops like I do, but in shorter loops, you might stay in a region. For example, there is, I forget the name of it, but there is a service that you can buy it. It's a couple $100s a year, but it'll allow you to stay at any campground in their network within a quadrant of the country. And the countries are split into 4 quadrants. On the West Coast, purchasing that makes absolutely 0 sense. There's so much free space available to camp. On the East Coast, it is quite a bit different. You need to keep moving a lot more on the east. So buying something that allows you to get into a campsite, stay on the campgrounds for 2 weeks. It allows you to stay on the campgrounds, any campground in the network for 2 weeks. Then you have to leave for 1 week, and then you can come back and do another 2 weeks. Any campground in the network, and they're, as I said, quadrant off. So you'd have like the Northeast area, which goes all up to Maine, down to like Ohio, down to like Virginia-ish. So that would be 1 quadrant. You can stay in that grouping, and it's only going to cost you a couple $100s a year. If you're doing things like this and you're researching how to park and things like this, parking doesn't cost a lot of money. Trust me, I've only paid for 2 parking spots the whole time in my van life. And both of those places were places I wanted to pay the money because I liked the spot it was, and I thought the prices was worth it. By the way, the first one cost me $6 and the second one cost me $2. So I've spent a total of $8 in parking my entire almost a year. In 6 weeks, I will have been in my van for a full year. It has not cost me a lot to park. Let's talk about gas, because that's going up and through the roof. Yes, that is getting more problematic in a way. However, you have to recognize most van dwellers were not driving constantly. You get guys like Van City Vanlife, Chrome, love that channel. His thing is to constantly drive and show you what you're doing. So he spends hundreds of dollars in gas a day, literally a day, because that's his thing. He vlogs daily motion and movement. That is extraordinarily rare in van dwellers. Most van dwellers get to a spot and then they don't move. I've spent less money in my van in gas this year than I have in my car when I had the apartment. Because I drive, 200 miles to a BLM spot, land. So BLM, I'm going to refer to BLM a lot. This is not Black Lives Matter. This is Bureau of Land Management. It's public land. You can stay on public land for free for up to 21 days. And then you have to get in your vehicle and you have to drive at least 30 miles away. And then you can stay for another 21 days. Almost all of the West is BLM land. You can stay out there for free. Just pull over somewhere. You're not in the way and you can set up camp. All right. And when you're doing that, you're not driving a lot. I would find myself driving in a town, get some gas, get some supplies. I'd go 2 or 3 weeks before I'd even put gas in the car. Living in the apartment, you got the errands, you got to get to the store and back and 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 commute and commute and commute and commute and do this and that and this errand and that errand and you do all this kind of stuff, and it ends up being, it all depends on your lifestyle. So it's not explicitly cheaper, it's not explicitly more expensive. It depends on your lifestyle. But for me, what I have found is I generally spend less. Now, month of May, I spent $500 in gas, which is definitely more than I've ever spent any other month in my life. But prior to that, I have not spent a lot. But to his point, yes, tiny houses are becoming big in the millennial groups. Living in your car becoming big in your millennial groups. A lot of people do it, and a lot of it, it's not a sustainable life type thing as much as it is. These are people that recognize when they settle down, they're not going anywhere. My brother has not left his city, other than visiting my mother 1 city away. He has not left the city in 10 or 15 years. I don't want to live like that. I want to get out. I want to see the world. And this is part for me. I've done a little bit of traveling. I mean, prior to moving in the van, I have been in 45 of the 48 lower states, albeit that was spread over 40 years. Since I've been in the van, I have been in about 25 or 30 states, and I plan on hitting the last 3 states in the lower 48 I have not been on this year, and it won't cost me a ton. If you're getting your vehicle on payments, that will bring up a little bit more. So is it a cost saver? It can be. It doesn't have to be. So to say it absolutely costs more is problematic. Now, the thing I think he's getting into next... actually, the next couple things he's going to get into here in a few minutes, I'm going to disagree a little bit more. But do you move into the van to be self-sufficient? That's the next point he got into this block. No. Van life is not self-sufficiency. In fact, I am more dependent on the supply chain, which right now terrifies me because our supply chain is not doing super well. Now, I have not seen massive shortages everywhere. I haven't even, I've noticed some emptier shelves in baby formulas, but most places I've been, I have seen baby formula. Maybe nobody gets that Similac stuff. I don't know. I think that was the poisonous stuff anyway. But I've seen that. Of course, peanut butter shelves were empty around the country because there was a big recall on Jif peanut butter. If you didn't know that, look that up. But at the same token, with that, I have seen some supply chain issues. All over California, I could not buy propane. I'm dependent on propane. And I can't store massive quantities. I have to pick it up slowly over the time. And I was running fairly low on propane. I couldn't find it. I was in California for a whole month, never saw propane once. They would hit the shelf. Everyone would come in and buy it all out within an hour. There were runs on it. I've seen runs on other things. I saw runs on ramen noodles at one place. I think that was also in California. I can't remember. But yeah, so we are now here though is where he is wrong about that point is that in van life, we learn to be self-sufficient in more areas most Americans are. I have to learn to be self-sufficient on figuring out how to get water, figuring out how to get electricity, figuring out where I need to go, figuring out where I need to park. All of these are things that you always have to think about. And we're going to talk more about that later because he does talk about parking and stuff a little bit later. We'll get into that. But at the same time, we are self-sufficient in some areas, but we're not self-sufficient in things like food and basic supplies. A lot of it is because we cannot store so much stuff. So let's see what he says next.
Like you can't have a normal life. You can't have, a set place that you live. If you're doing that already, you might as well just, build a house that's cheap or something like that.
Let's comment on the set place to live. Most of the people I have encountered in van life, they have set places to live. They've just gotten to the point where they also want to explore. So they have a set place and then they have a van and they'll seasonally travel or they'll travel 2 weeks out of each month or, whatever, half the time on the road, half the time at home, things like that. So you can have a place of your own and van life. That's probably a little bit better option, but that's not really the question he is dealing with. So we're going to let that one aside.
The way I think of it is like when you are living mobily, when you're living in a car or a van or something like that, a single car accident could lose you everything you have.
Completely false. Completely false. For a couple reasons. Number one, very, very few van dwellers have everything that they have inside of their vehicle. Me as a minimalist, I have a storage shed. If I were to have a catastrophic van loss, I use the savings that I have. I get to my auxiliary city, which is not State College. State College is too expensive. I have an auxiliary city where I have a cheap storage unit, which has an entire apartment full of furniture in. If I need to, I get to that city. There's a high turnover in apartments and it's a lower economy. I can move right on in and I can unload it in an apartment from a storage unit into an apartment in short notice. All right. And so that is what you do. But most people don't carry everything. And even if you are, there are a few van dwellers that everything that they own is with them. Even if everything you own is with you, the chances of a catastrophic complete loss is about the same as his property going through a catastrophic complete loss. Yeah, your chance of a car accident sure is higher. Your chance of a fender bender that might put your vehicle off the road for a couple days is a little bit higher. But your chances of a catastrophic loss are about the same as a catastrophic loss in your house. So it's not a risk you're worried about. There was a vanlifer that I followed their channel a year and a half ago, was going to the seasonal job. It was like in the wintertime, a semi slid on ice, plowed right into her van. She was in the hospital for like 6 weeks. They still salvaged almost everything off the van. The van was a loss, but they were able to go in there. They pulled out the solar panels. I think they lost one solar panel. They pulled out the solar panels. They pulled out the charge controller. They pulled out the equipment. They pulled out the computers. They pulled out everything. They basically saved her life, basically, as far as material goods. The van was a loss, and insurance paid for the van. So it's not a true premise that you're going to lose everything, that you're one crash away from losing everything. It's not like there's one couple that got rid of everything that they had, put it into a sailboat, and the sailboat sank the next day. Yeah, if you're a boat life and your boat sinks, that's probably a catastrophic loss. A vehicle crash, unless you crash into a gasoline tanker that explodes on the interstate or something, you're not going to have a catastrophic loss where you lose everything. That is a false premise.
Right? Even a minor fender bender that consigns you to the side of the road for a couple days, that could be a setback enough.
Nearly every hotel has weekly rates that are significantly cheaper than a daily rate. You know, you pay $500 in most hotels or motels to stay for a whole week if you need to. That's no big deal.
But especially if your car is stolen or your car is damaged, you know, or like...
Stolen could be a concern. This is where the acute awareness of your surroundings comes into play. Don't park it in the hood, okay? But for the most part, you're not going to have big deals. Might be a bigger problem in the East and the West. People won't mess with your cars. Also depends on what type of vehicle you're driving. If it's just a car and they can see there's nobody in it, you have a greater loss. If it's like a van like mine, you don't know if I'm in here or not. And sometimes I like it that way. You don't know if you start messing with the thing, if some dude's going to jump out with an axe and chop your head off, okay? It could happen. I got an axe right here and a gun here and knives all over the place. People aren't going to mess with your van usually because we're blocked out enough. You get close to it, you can't really tell if somebody's in there or not. And it's not a big deal, but yeah, it could happen. I'd say it's a bigger problem if you're living out of your car and you're leaving your car parked somewhere to hike than it is if you have a van and you're leaving a van somewhere to hike, because the van, greater chance somebody's in there. Car, you can easily see if somebody is or not.
Like vandalized or something like that, or, you know, someone T-bones you or something like that, everything you have is just immediately gone, okay? That's one of the big problems that I think a lot of people don't think about because maybe they've never been in a wreck or they don't look at that as a possibility. That's problem number one. Like, even if you're minimizing your expenditures, you are in a position where it's much easier to lose much, much more, okay? Thing number two is... one of the things you have...
I guess it's on my notes here, but commenting on that last little statement, you're in a position to lose much, much more. Well, if you're really living that minimal lifestyle and you don't have a whole lot, replacing not a whole lot is like nothing. Like the minimum renter's policy I could get on my storage unit was like $15,000. I'm like, can I go any lower than that? Like, I have old books in there mostly, and a futon. I could pick up another one for $100. You know, the only thing in my storage shed that has any value is I have a Lego collection that's probably worth $7,000 to $10,000. I would love to sell it. If there's any toy dealers out there, I'd love to buy a really expensive, good condition Lego collection. Let me know. But yeah. Let me get I'm going to get to video comments real quick because this is kind of where my notes has a bigger gap here. So let me have a look at your questions here. I had ambition managed for a few years, hold it in, violin case, doing street music and hostels around Europe. Okay. Diesel at $6 a gallon isn't cheap. That is correct. I'm glad I don't have a diesel van, but my heater is diesel. Couple gas stations up here in Maine, $5 for diesel. I have no idea why, but most of them is still $6. Do most van dwellers have solar attached to the roof? I thought so, but it turns out no. Most of the van dwellers I have personally met, they have portable solar panels. And so many of us will use a engine charger. So the people I talked to the other day, they were running what are called AGM batteries, or like a solid state lead battery, lead acid battery. Those ones are basically like a car battery. Well, he has the celluloid. It's called a BAM or something like that. I forget. The BIM. It's called BIM, battery isolation module. And the battery isolation module, as you're driving down the road, it toggles your alternator output between your car battery and your house battery, and your car battery and your house battery. You do that kind of thing, and it'll charge your house battery a little bit. What I have is a DC-DC charger, which is a lot better option for lithium. My house batteries are lithium because they are way better for sustainability and longevity and things like that. So what mine does is it will grab a constant amount off of the alternator, so the alternator will continue to charge the battery, but then it pulls more juice off of the alternator. It upscales it up to 18 volts, feeds that into the battery bank, because the BIM, because of the size of the alternator, is never capable to fully charge, particularly lithium. But a DC to DC charger can charge a lithium all the way. So most van dwellers have some type of engine charger installed, whether it's a BIM or a DC-DC charger. Most of them I found do not actually have solar on the roof, although a few of them do. I have 500 watts of solar, which is great. Right now I'm drawing in... Right now, I'm pulling 18.9 amps off, and right now my van is probably only drawing about 15 amps. So I'm actually, right now, despite I'm streaming on my massive, like, basically gaming PC, my refrigerator's running, lights and monitors are all on, my batteries are still charging because the solar panels are producing more output than I'm currently expending. Let's see. It's 362 miles to our camp because of gas. We will just stay longer. Yep. And that's how a lot of people are going at. Yeah. Do any boondocking at Wally's? Yes. I've been at Wally's, I think 3 or 4 times this trip so far. Out here, there's less BLM land. So you find yourself at Walmart parking lots, park and rides, gas stations, and things like that. A little bit more on the east. But yeah, I was up in Calais. I was at one at Ellsworth. I was at one at Augusta. Yeah, I've been to a number of Wally's. Luke Smith's core issue is van life is inherently dependent. His whole message seems to be an independent from the system. Okay, you're getting ahead of yourself there. We'll get back to, let's go ahead and pause there. No, let's just go ahead and finish up the comments because I want to get back to that one now. Has fire danger been a factor for you? Yes, actually I camped at a place that I was going to camp at a place. I decided to go a little bit further down the road. I came back to that same place because there was a water station across the street and it had been on fire. So yes, there was a forest fire where I was about to camp, but last minute I decided to move somewhere else. So yes, I have been through one forest fire. I do have on my Van Life channel here a video where I talked about that. Let's see. Oh, there you go. It's called Narrowly Escaping a Forest Fire. You go have a look at that video there on Tux Traveler. And you can see all about it. Let's see. Copy link. There you go. Here is Narrowly Escaping a Forest Fire. Many places they actively discourage tiny houses. Yes, in many places, tiny houses, as many people want to lay them out, are actually illegal. Believe it or not. That's kind of stupid. But it is. But if you take that same tiny house and you build it on a trailer, it's legal. Apartments in New York City are the same size as your van and cost $25,000 or $2,500 per month. I know, yep, kind of crazy. LOL in Cali, you have to cut back on food after gas, so ramen runs isn't unexpected. This is true. A lot of snowbirds that go south from the winter here. Greetings, Moonbase. How's it going there? I get your email. You have to have a specific POB to get your email. Okay. So there are a number of ways to get mail on the road. There are van life mail services. They have full street addresses, so you can get packages sent there, you can get mail sent there, and then you can either swing by and pick it up, or if you're traveling across the country, you can have them forwarded to either an affiliate location, a mailbox, etc. A post office can usually accept mail for you on a short-term basis. You could get it sent to a friend, or if you're staying at a campsite for a couple weeks, you can go ahead and have your mail forwarded to you to a campsite. So there's a number of ways to do that. I personally, I've put everything as online as I can, so I get very little mail, and I have a business manager that picks up my mail for me, and then anything that's important, we figure out a way. Land can make him money, though. Maybe. We'll see. Then there's insurance. There's insurance. There's always insurance. My insurance in my van cost me $1,000 a year. I bet his house insurance costs him more. Buy land because they don't make it anymore. Okay, there you go. These happens once, too. Drive a Jeep, no top, no doors, no problem. There you go. You don't have any guns. Boating accidents. Yeah, I did have a tragic boating accident. I did lose it. I did forget about that. Thanks for reminding me, Bobby Baloney. I did lose my firearms. I lost them all. Bummer. Park in industrial area rather than residential because peeps and Navy will call the cops. Yes, possibly. I did have a lady here when police come knocking. So this was funny because I wasn't parking in a neighborhood. I was going to a literal city park in the city where I own my business and pay taxes. And the lady kept calling the police. I finally told the police, hey, would you tell the lady that this is not her personal backyard? And the police like, yeah. Because like, you're not doing anything wrong, dude. So yeah, go tell the crazy woman to stop or I'm going to file charges again for harassment. Yeah. Do worry about stealing my gas more than anything else. Yep. Gas lock. We had to get a special lock for gas to curb the stealing. Wow. Rubber fuel line, siphon out. Sells mechanical fuel pump. New York City regulations. Yeah, pretty much. You could always have a horse trailer drawn out and cut out the gas car. There you go. Horses are expensive too. How do you make money living like this? So most people will, there's an entire community of people to find transient jobs. So some van lifers will go to a place where they can work for 1 or 2 or 3 months, like for the summer. You can be a campsite host, which, you can stay on the campsite for free, use the showers, facilities. You get paid to do that. And then they'll take the rest of the year off and travel on that money. And then they'll come back and do these. You find these temporary type jobs all over the place. Up north, in Wyoming, Montana, it's the beet harvesting season. During the beet harvesting season, they take on tons of extra short-term employees. Over the Christmas season, you can always get short-term employment working at like a FedEx or something like that, FedEx, UPS, extra demand, and then you just quit when they're downscaling for the end of the year, and then you go off and van dwell for a while longer. In my case, I have a web development company, and the Switch to Linux channel pays some of my bills as well, so thank you guys for your support for that. It's really variable. In my case, a lot of web design development things. Okay, we're going to get to the solar questions in a bit. Let's get back to Luke Smith for a bit.
Have to have when you're living a normal life is you need a lot of space. Okay, not just general space to like walk around or do stuff, but you need places to store tools. To store things that you're not using every day or every week or maybe every month or maybe even every year. You want space. Okay.
All right. So here he's talking about space and the need of it. This is kind of another false premise. The first thing is that we store a lot more than you think. I mean, if you guys ever played Dungeons and Dragons, you should know that a van lifer's van, if we're experienced, we literally have bags of holding in our place. I can go in the back and pull out an entire tool set, tables, chairs, and all sorts of fun stuff and set up more stuff than you imagine. I have 8 power tools in here, multiple different batteries, ways to charge things. I can rebuild computers from in this place. We got tools. Okay. We got lots of space. Now, additionally, some people who live the minimal lifestyle, you need a tool. Whatever city you're in, check Craigslist. Somebody probably has some little thing. You go, you buy the little thing, you use your little tool setup, and then you donate it to Goodwill. Because how often do you really need that thing? Not enough to necessarily buy it. We as Americans have too much space, but the other false premise here is that most of us van dwellers, we have space. It's called a storage shed. So when I'm traveling around and I have projects that need done, I just start heading towards my storage shed, and I go in there and I grab the things I need, and I stay in that local area for a while. I do the type of work I need to do. I return the things I don't need back to my storage shed. That's how you handle things that you don't use on a day-to-day basis. As far as walking around, yeah, the world is our backyard, my friends. And our scenery is different every day. Yesterday, I walked through a bog where there's actual wild carnivorous plants. I walked along a sea coast. I saw multiple lighthouses. It was a glorious time. The day before that, I walked through a nice, thick, old forest. I went on the top of this mountain. I did an overlook, which overlooked the bay. We don't have any shortage of places to walk around for that. As far as storage and space, a lot of us do have storage units, and a lot of us store more things in our van than you can possibly imagine. You do it well. It's not always convenient to get to, but I think of like Foresty Forest. He's a van lifer up in Canada. He's got like a sewing machine up there. He's got a whole tool shed in his van. It's like, where are you storing? I don't even know, because he's got a smaller van than I got, but he does it. And I think what he's doing is he's using these stabilized crates as basically his tables and stuff. Just got to tear down the table to get the stuff in the crates, which is a valid way of doing things. So yeah, space is not as big of a deal as you think. Yeah, there are certainly some things. Now, when you own property, you need more stuff and bigger stuff. I'm not hauling a lawnmower, but I don't need to mow a lawn either. So it's not the most important premise, but he does make a valid point in the fact that some of us do need to have a few extra things, but many of us do have storage units or houses.
Okay. And you might not need a lot of space. You might be able to live a very full life on a quarter of an acre, or maybe even less, maybe an eighth of an acre, something like that. But you are going to need some space to store stuff. You're going to want to have a shed. You're going to want to have something to, put the things you're not using in. And if you have some kind of mobile living, everything you have, like everything you own, and I've known people who live mobily, but the thing is, everything they have has to be some kind of mobile equivalent, and they can never have the best stuff. If you want to do something basic with basic tools, it's just not going to happen. That's not the kind.
This might have been true a number of years ago, but a lot of good developments have come along lately. Look at the Ryobi tool set is big at this. They've been doing a lot of targeting things towards van lifers because they have literally like any type of tool. You can get Ryobi battery-powered chainsaws that work really, really well, and they run off the same 18-volt batteries as your cordless drill. So I have, in my toolbox, I have a cordless drill, and I have a, was it a compression drill? I forget the name of the other one. Impact drill. I have an impact drill. I have a dust buster. I have a saw, a flashlight. I think there's something else in there as well. And I got room to store more tools. We don't have to always have the mobile equivalent of things. Sometimes we choose to. I would rather do a French press, but I use an American press instead because the French press is so hard to clean in van life. Additionally, most of the French presses are glass, and my American press is not. However, the American press works just fine. It's about the same. Is that a compromise? Maybe. I mean, I don't have a big crock pot in here. I have a tiny crock pot over here, and right now it's making chili. Tasty. Homemade chili, in fact. So I'm making homemade chili in my van today. Go figure. And so we don't generally have to have mobile equivalents of everything. There was a time when this is true, but it's not quite as much anymore. This can be valid in some cases, but for the most part, isn't.
Kind of thing, if you're just contemplating this lifestyle, you're not really thinking about it that often, but that is going to be a big problem. Like there's a huge swath of things you're not going to be able to do because you can't have a place, you don't have a tool shed, or there's so many things that need, if you want a saw or something that needs a lot of power, that's sort of hard to, I mean, everything becomes more difficult, right? If you're legitimately trying to live, remotely, especially if you're living out of a car. Now, campers will often have a little bit more room, but still nowhere near enough, what you need. And that also means you won't be able to do stuff like, growing stuff or holding animals.
All right, so he's going to get into his next part here. There is a difference between living in a car, living in a van, living in an RV. A lot of people who live in cars, many of these people are kind of forced to, and they're in really a different situation. They're in a hurting situation, a place that's bad. And what's even sadder is it's becoming more and more illegal to even sleep in your vehicle in many places. And so not only have they lost their houses due to bad circumstances, now you're telling me you can't live in your car either. Well, what would you like these people to do? I'd like to get these politicians to say, what would you like these people to do? Can you not have a good municipal lot where people who are forced in their car have a safe place to sleep overnight? Might be a good first step. I was at one last night. Little city here. They don't have a lot of overnight parking spaces, but they have one row of spots. If you're between this sign and this sign on the back row by the river, you're allowed to park here overnight. Cool. Parked here overnight. Did my one night. Got up at, I think, 7:30 in the morning, and I drove out of there. More places need that, but more places like, NIMBYs, I don't want them in my backyard. And for valid reasons, because here's the flip side of that coin. You people who are forced in that circumstances, you don't have anything better to do with your clean up after yourself, for crying out loud. Because there is a guy who's forced in his vehicle in State College. He's got about 300 Pepsi bottles on his dashboard. Okay, and all he does is sits there in the park in his front seat drinking Pepsi. Would you get out of your van and throw away your empty Pepsi bottles so your car doesn't look like it's abandoned? That's where the people there. But that is one portion of van life. This is the portion that guys like Homes on Wheels Alliance and Cheap RV Living are catering to. They're teaching these people who are forced into their cars how to do it successfully. But understand, I'm not in that group. I don't relate to that group as much. I willingly got into the circumstance because I had a specific goal in mind. We are going to get to that in a minute, but I want to have him play for. I'm going to back that up just a few seconds. I want to hear this whole thought for about 30 seconds.
They're enough, what you need, and that also means you won't be able to do stuff like growing stuff or holding animals. I don't hold animals, although I probably should. I have enough land for it. But, there are just all these kind of things that you can't do that you should be able to do. Okay. And last and not.
Okay. So we're going to stop there. This is the point where he is absolutely 100% rock solid right. And everybody who can should be looking for a plot of land where you can do a homestead, you can grow your own food, and yes, Luke, you should be growing animals. Please, go get some chickens. At least start with some chickens. Because we are going to start seeing some food crises happen at the end of this summer. This is my biggest problem with van life, is I'm looking at this going, I hope it's not that bad. But the fact of the matter is, yes, when I get off of the road, and I'm not going to be van lifing my whole life, when I get off of the road, my goal is to homestead. It's to get some property and set up a farm, produce my own food, raise my own animals. Those are the types of things that I would like to do next. That is the point where Luke Smith is at in his life, and that is the point that he is getting to at his point video, and he is 100% rock solid right. If you do not have a way to produce your own food, you need to start thinking about that now. Even if you're in a city, there's community gardens. There's plans you can do for like an urban windowsill gardens. Find a way that you can grow food, because that is where we should all be heading to. We cannot be relying on dementia patient in chief and his plans and his ideas to help our food chain distribution. We have to be growing our food. We have to be doing these things. These are the things that he is dead right on. So when you're talking about van life as a long-term living plan, there are absolutely and inherently fundamental problems with it. He's right. You need to set up a homestead. You need to get some land. You need to establish a garden. And here's the thing about van life. It is teaching me how to live off the grid. So when I get out of my van and I get onto some land, guess who's going to have a better chance of living when the whole grid down situation goes on? I'm already living off the grid. That's what van life does. When you do it right, is it's going to teach you how to do things. But he's not done with his video. He's only halfway through. And the next about minute and a half is when he gets into his next premise. And I think he's wrong on a few of these premises.
At least, like, this might sound like a superficial thing. And I'm all for people being, I don't know, eccentric or something like that. But realistically speaking, van life?
Or shall I echo Van Life? What's up, weirdos?
Is weird. Like people make it look good on YouTube when they're like, oh man, here's me and my wife and we have van life and we're traveling the country. Wow, that sounds like very exotic, but in real life, like, okay, even if you have, this actually applies to like tiny houses too, which, I fully recommend. Tiny houses are kind of a meme as well. You should, if you want a small house, get a small house. Don't get like one of these tiny houses where everything is like, oh, let me do it in 40 by 40 and like, it's not actually bolted to the ground. Don't do that stuff. And the reason I say this, and, of campers is, like, it's hard to have normal friends. It's hard to have, like, what are you going to do, have someone over in your camper?
Okay, so he's going to get into this part here about friends and such. He is dead wrong on this. And here's the reason. We, in our American society now, we're always moving along. People are always coming and going. And some of us, we have best friends that we can communicate with. Oftentimes our friends are defined by who we work with, who we live by, or who we worship with, or things like that. Who we go to clubs with, things like that. All right. In van life, I have seen more of my friends for more time than I have in the last 8 years. I have good friends in California. Hadn't seen him since I moved out of Wyoming, 2013. But in the van, he's still busy out there. But you know what? I can drive myself onto his house and park in his driveway, and I did for 2 weeks. It was great. We had a great time. And then I had a friend in Wyoming, hadn't seen him for a long time. Drive my van on over there because he works during the day. Park in the driveway. I get my stuff done during the day. Didn't move anywhere, didn't spend any gas. I didn't move my van for 2 whole weeks. Good gas savings. He comes home from work at the end of the night. We hung out. Great times. I had friends in Florida, haven't seen since they moved out of Wyoming, 2012. 10 years, haven't seen them. Drive on down to Florida. Hey, parked in their backyard for a week. Hung out, had a great time. We meet more people, we have better friendships, we have more things. Because when we're talking about having people over, rarely are we having people over inside the van. We don't hang out inside the van like you hang out inside your house. When van lifers hang out, man, we hang out, we throw a campfire. We will have a potluck outside, we set up tables. We do life in a more fun way than just sitting inside at a kitchen table. Not to say we can't do that. Because it is still possible, albeit a little bit more inconvenient to his point. But the point is that we have more friends, and even though they're scattered around America, as our friends often are in this generation, we can see them more because you have friends in different places. You don't get out to see your friends in different places. You just don't have time. But in my case, I do. I travel around and see them. I travel to different places. I visit friends. I'm all over the country. I'd be like, hey, let's visit. I've met channel supporters here. Had a great time. We meet out somewhere along the road as I'm traveling through the cities. Oh yeah, let's meet up. Let's do that. Met a couple people doing that face to face in person. These are the relationships that van life has allowed me to have that I would never have had otherwise. So no, you don't take the idea of, okay, I'm going to have people over and just transplant that. Well, how do I do that in my van? Well, you don't do that in your van necessarily. You do that at a campground. You do that at their houses because everyone's too busy to come visit you anyway. You go to them. When's a convenient time? I can park in your driveway for a couple days and then we'll meet up and hang out. Well, you have the spare time and you don't have to go anywhere. That's how it happens.
It's just not. It's going to be awkward. And even in a tiny house, even in a tiny home where you're like showing people, oh wow, this is how we store this. Wow, it's so creative and blah blah blah. The thing is, when you have someone over, the whole spiel will be you showing them your house that is actually very uncomfortable to like live and visit in. And
not
stuff
really.
Like that.
I
Now,
mean, sometimes.
the only exception would be if you have your house on some large plot of land where you can do stuff outside. But at that point, you might as well just have a slightly bigger house, or in the case of a camper, like. I mean, if you're moving around from place to place, it's sort of weird to just have people at the camping lot you're staying at. So I think, although, like, I understand the principles of people who want to live this kind of lifestyle, and I did when I was a kid.
All right, so that's a good breaking point here. For this part here, this is how most of the people I have met in van life are actually living. They have plots of land, they have houses, but they're living in van life part-time, and some up to 50% of their time. They have a house they can go back to, they have a home base they can go back to, and then they just jump in their vehicle and just travel around the country. So the idea that you can't visit with people, you can't ever do anything, and when they do come over, well, if they're over a lot, you don't need to show them a lot every single time. But most people are curious. How do you do that? 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 And they're curious, which is why van tours are so popular. The van tour is my most popular video because people like to know how do you do X, Y, or Z in your van. It's popular for that reason. All right, let's get to a few more comments and then we will finish up the video. All right. How much solar do you have? How much battery capacity? Do you have an alternator set up to charge your batteries? Okay, I have 500 watts of solar. I have a 40 amp MPPT charge controller. I have 200 amp hours of lithium in the lithium LiFePO formation, which allows, basically it's the best formation, 10-year lifespan before you even notice any degradation. Very good and safe batteries as well. The safest type of batteries. They're not prone to explode if they get a hole in them or something. I have a DC-DC charger set up to install. So actually that's the second highest ranking video on my channel. Installing a DC-DC engine charger. This is something that was in my original van build. But I decided last minute not to do it. And then I realized over the Christmas break when the sun is way down in the sky, installing that is definitely a necessity for the wintertime. So, I went ahead and installed one of those, and I have the video about that. Watch Nomadland. I have not seen Nomadland. Last I knew, you could only watch it on Netflix. I'm not supporting Netflix. If it's available somewhere else, that'd be cool. I mean, I've met some of the people in that, but yeah, it's pretty much depicted how most people on the road make a living. Yes, they Nomadland did talk about those transient jobs and things. You have issue with banks and other institutions. You're technically of no fixed abode. No, you establish a specific legal address, which could be with those organizations I mentioned earlier, and generally that takes care of the problem. I don't need a lawnmower, don't have a garden. That's right. Applies to people living in small apartments or just cities just as much. Correct. Yeah, a lot of his arguments against van life are equally arguments against that. And that's one of the things. He just bought a bunch of land and is doing a lot of homesteading stuff. It makes sense that he comes to that general conclusion. But it's not just van life, it's apartments. It's the same way. I had a lot more crap when I owned a house than when I rented an apartment, and so that's the thing. Plus people, let's see, invest in Japanese currency. The dollar's dead. Wouldn't surprise me. Invest in Ghana. I'm going to invest in hummus. All right. Please, Bill, take care of us. Didn't work for some time for personal reasons and was self-supported. I saw people less when I was at work. Nobody has time. They're always too busy. Exactly. That's exactly the point, Error 42. In fact, one of the people, if you watch the documentary called I think it's called Without Bound, awesome documentary. I can't recommend that one enough. The one lady in there, she's like, I retired and I thought I'd get a chance to see all these people, but it was just too busy. So I said, I'm going to get in the vehicle and roam around the country anyway, because that's the thing. People are just too busy. Invest in a hair club for geeks. Nah. Does Incel Luke have any friends outside YouTube? I don't know. I'm not sure. Is he specifically Incel? I don't know. I don't know. I find his content fascinating. I love his content. Are you able to find plenty of places to worship? Are they welcoming to strangers? Some of them are more welcoming than others. Some of them, unfortunately, are more welcoming than others. Some have given me a chance to see some really good places and some really bad places. I have a video, I think it's on my Christian channel, about, hey, places of worship, please do better jobs with your technology. Like, at least tell us where you are and what time your worship times are. One church site I went to, had been clearly hacked. It was sending people onto casinos and gambling sites. And I told the pastor, he's like, well, yeah, we don't know anything about the website anyway. It's there, but yeah, whatever. We don't do anything with it. It's like, dude, it's hacked. Take it down. Like, but yeah, most of the time I found many places are very welcoming. There's a few that have not been. Also though, van life, as far as worship is concerned, has given me a chance to experience a lot of things. For example, my favorite preacher is John MacArthur. I got a chance to go and listen to John MacArthur preach live because I'm in van life. I was driving near the vicinity of the city. Let's go down and hear him preach. And it was awesome. I loved it. I loved his church. It was an awesome place. It was very inviting and welcoming place. I've been to some places that weren't quite as well as well. You're offended, dude. Who's offended? Invest in Terra's stable coin. How often do you talk to people in real life? Don't you ever go crazy from all the loneliness? No, actually, I pulled up, was it 2 days ago? I pulled up at a state park that somebody said you should go check this out. Another van life couple pulled up right next to me, and the three of us hiked through the park together. Happens a lot. Happens all the time. I interact with a lot of people. In fact, I'm in a city right now. I've had a chance to give him a call yet, but apparently one of my best friend's cousins lives in this town, and they said, oh, give him a call. He'd love to see your van. And so when I'm done with the stream, I'm going to drive closer to town where I should have some cell signal, and I can go and call my friend's cousin. So no, we get a chance to hang out a lot. You go to churches as well. You hang out there. So, you know, it's absolutely. You don't... I'm also an introvert, so I don't really want to see people most of the time. The other day, I actually serendipitously found a spot off of an ATV path. I'm pretty sure I drove down an ATV path, got a little bit down. There was a little cubby hole that was hidden between two cliffs. I pulled the van in there, and I stayed there for 2 days. I got perfect internet, and I was just like, I'm not going anywhere. And I did not see a human being for 2 days straight, and it was glorious. And then I left, and I drove out of there, and I went up to Callius, I think. No, I think from there I went down and hung out with those van lifers. Then I went to Callius and got some donuts at a Tim Hortons up there. If you ever get to a Tim Hortons, they have this cinnamon donut. Mwah, glorious. It's an amazing donut. Check it out. So the Nomadland is on Hulu too. Okay. Used to watch Will Prowse. He did videos of RV life, but transitioned to just solar. Yeah, he got injured to the point where he couldn't work, and so living in an RV was the only thing he did. But then what's so respectable at his channel is he self-taught himself everything about solar, and he is right now considered the #1 solar expert on YouTube, and he knows his stuff in and out. If you've not seen this, guys, you should go check this out. If you are even remotely curious about batteries, if you've not seen him, he will buy with his own money every lithium battery on the market, take a saw to them, cut them open, and see how they're made. It is incredible. You should check him out. National parks tier list, like which ones are best. Probably my favorite national park that I've been to is probably White Sands. So if I head on over to my national parks list, no, we're not going to play the parks list. Black Canyon was pretty cool. I used to like Arches the best. I find it too crowded these days. It is cool and impressive. It's unique. That's what's good about it. Canyonlands, if you like canyons, I think Canyonlands is way better than Grand Canyon because they have canyons and a lot more hikes and other things to do. Mesa Verde. Bryce Canyon is one of my favorites. Just absolutely stunning canyon views. Zion is pretty cool, but again, overly crowded. Death Valley's fun. The cool thing about Death Valley, if you do decide to van life at all, Death Valley is one of the national parks in the country. You can just go, and as long as you're off of a paved road and not blocking a roadway, you are allowed to dry camp in Death Valley anywhere you want. The other place you can do that, there's one, I forget the name of it. It's in West Virginia. There's another one you can do that. Joshua Tree is pretty neat. Saguaro was pretty neat. I think White Sands was one of my favorite. Congaree was pretty fun too. That was pretty cool. I was just at Acadia, which is nice. So yeah, I mean, no. Stop. See, there's that picture-in-picture crap. It's like, okay, what on earth, YouTube, compelled you to picture-in-picture play something because I didn't have anything playing at all, and I clicked the back button? No! This is why I turn that crap off. You know, I've not hardened this particular browser yet. Anyway. But yeah, that's why I hate picture-in-picture, going back to my Firefox video the other day. Luke Smith likes to play Devil's Advocate. Yeah, there you go. Don't go DC. Don't go to DC. It's a brand. I have no intentions of going to DC. I've been to DC once. I walked the street once. That was enough. Yeah. Invest in Pyramid Coin. Yeah, there you go. Without Bound, Perspective of Mobile Living. Yes, that is an awesome documentary. Have a look at that one. That's a plastic case. It's dangerous to saw a battery. Yes, it is very dangerous to saw a battery. And he knows what he's doing, though, which is, you know, the fact that he has taught himself enough and he knows enough how to safely and properly saw a battery to see how it's built and constructed is useful for the rest of us so we know which batteries are constructed well. All right, let's go back to Luke.
When you really think it through, and you really, like, experiment with it. And there was a period, you know, I was never, like, homeless, but, you know, there were times where I was visiting a town, and I'd be like, I'll just stay in my car, and I'll see how that goes. And it's always more expensive than you think, especially if you want to park legally. You have to, you know, either you have to pay or you have to go to, you know, some certain place, and, like, it's just kind of a pain. Like, there are going to be a lot of costs you don't realize. And, of course, you're paying for gas, massive amounts of gas, because you're dragging around everything you own in your camper or whatever. You can say, oh, I'll just, you know, unhook it, or I'll have another car or something. And there are just so many things to think through.
All right. So here there's we covered the driving and the gas issue. There are some valid points that there's not. As far as places to park, he's using his old reality, applying it to a common situation. The problem with that is in our current common situation is we now have databases and places where we can go, where we can find campsites. For example, if you go to freecampsites.net, not .com. I typed in .com. Don't do .com. It's .net. Freecampsites.net. You have a nice listing here, and you can just kind of scroll into wherever you happen to be, and oh, look at that. Look at all those campsites available. Let's see. Close that. Oh, how'd we land in Mexico? All right, let's go to Missouri, I guess. So here is wherever you're at. Here's a bunch of things. Now, this does not list everything. This is just things people have submitted. But look in your general area, and there are going to be places where you can park. There's places you can figure out. It's not that difficult to find places. So you use this. I do use Google Maps, actually. This is one of the applications where I do. Let me look in my basic hometown area of State College. Let me actually have to zoom out a little bit. So you can see we have this one here. Now, of course, if you're from the area, I know of multiple places in State College area where I can camp and park overnight. That would not be hard to find if you're just kind of coming into the area. But we have these resources available now. We have this, there's All Trails, there's a number of different sources that give us the information. And it's not actually that hard to find free parking anyway, especially if you're van lifing it. Usually what we do is we get out of town, we find a dirt road, and invariably some dirt road's going to have a little pull off. If you think anybody's coming down that dirt road in the 8 hours you need to sleep, you got another thing coming. Okay. I remember crossing back up into Pennsylvania when I just got back up here. I crossed over Pennsylvania. I'm like, I'm going to stop at that rest area just inside Pennsylvania. It was close. I'm like, well, it was a welcome center, Pennsylvania Welcome Center. You're not welcome, I guess. It's close. So I just drive to the next exit, pull off. There's a state game lands, and every state game lands in Pennsylvania has has a parking spot. They're usually in the woods on the back of a dirt road. I pulled in there, stopped there, didn't see a human being the whole night, got up in the morning and took off and went further down the road. It's not that hard. Okay. As far as the gas distance, now, if you're doing a big old RV or something, yeah, it's going to be bad on gas mileage. But if you get these modern vans, like my van has better gas mileage than most people's cars and trucks I've seen. I'm getting around 18 or so miles to the gallon, which is not all that bad in the scope of things. It could be better if I was driving a really small car or something. But again, if you're car dwelling, it doesn't cost you much of anything. If you're van dwelling, in my way I do it, it's still not all that bad. So you do have that. As far as finding places to park, though, you do your research, you do your homework in advance, and you do not have problems. Like I'm right now where I'm at. I knew where this spot was. I spotted it on the way to Acadia. It's not on any maps. In fact, I don't think anybody even in the local town knows this place exists, because I haven't seen a car where I'm at. This is a park and ride with 500 parking spots. I have not seen a single car in this parking lot for 2 days that I've used it. You just know, if you know what you're looking for, you know what you're looking for. And so that's kind of the case.
So I think a lot of people, they see people on YouTube living camping, kind of a camping life, or like even tiny homes, as I mentioned. Like I think they're kind of, I think people, I mean, tiny homes are less bad because you can have like space and stuff and you can do a lot of kind of normal stuff. It's just hard to have people over, have people visiting, stay with you, stuff like that. So, those are my thoughts. That's why I think, your priority should really be having land, a good amount of land, maybe a couple acres.
All right. So I guess wrapping that last point up, there a lot of people that really completely glamorize the van life. Everyone says everyone glamorizes the van life, but of all the people I follow, nobody really glamorizes it. Maybe on Instagram, but I avoid Meta like the plague, so can't comment on what's in Instagram or not. But for sure, I guess there's going to be some people that are like, oh, this is the amazing thing. And I mean, to be completely clear, yeah, van life is not perfectly easy. You're simply trading one set of problems for another set of problems. You're never getting rid of problems in life. There's always problems. There are always struggles. There's always challenges. This is why if you want to get out and see the world, you get out and see the world. And you do it at a time when you don't have deep responsibilities. I knew I was going to van life in 2016. The reason I didn't is because I was still working with kids and they were teenagers at that time. And it was just like, okay, you don't abandon the teenager in the heat of his teenage time because you might be the only adult they're talking to. Okay. But after the kid's well established and he's living his life well and he gets his own place and he's kind of launching out on his own, I don't have responsibilities. I could pick up another kid, or I could go and see the world for myself. I think this is going to be where, let me wrap up part of it, and then actually let me do the rest of his video here, because his last part here, he is 1001% spot on. This is what I said at the beginning. Everyone needs to be doing is find yourself a plot of land.
But like you could definitely survive on less than 1 acre, so long as it's, you've got some breathing room. And if you're short on cash, if you're like a young kid, I mean, even college age, and I'm talking really short on cash, like you don't have anything. Contemplate going in with your friends to buying land. Or
I would not do that. Don't go into a land deal with friends. Don't do that. Bad idea. But finding something small and then building up, like a friend of mine who homesteaded, they bought a smaller plot, built a home there, and then they kept an eye out. And as soon as any adjacent land to theirs went for sale, they went and placed a bid on it first. In fact, they went around and they talked to all the people that said, if you ever want to sell this land, call me first. Everybody did. He now has, I think, like 200 acres in the middle of the woods for his homestead. Start small, like you said at the beginning. Start small, a little bit here, a little bit there. I would not go into it with friends, but I think everybody should be looking at a plot of land that is called their own.
Something like that you can all use, or buying an old house, living in there just to save money and stuff like that. That would be my actual recommendation. And I will tell you, once you're an adult and you're more financially independent and stuff like that, you will start thinking about, well, I could probably own multiple properties. And, if you're willing to wait and willing to look for good deals, then things become a lot easier. And so your priority now, if you're young, should be, let me put myself in a position where I don't have to spend that much, and I have a pretty stable place where, I have a little bit of breathing room if I'm going to work on something, but, that's about it. But I will say, just as one extra addendum, I have known a couple guys. I've never done this. I have known a couple guys who have been voluntarily homeless, in the sense that, like,
all right, so this is kind of starting a different thought. I didn't have my notes, but I love what this point here. And this is kind of where I'm at, I think. So have a listen to this part here.
They're working in a job in another city, and, they don't have a wife or anything. So they're like, okay, I'm working 10 hours a day. I am just going to live in my car, and do something like that. And if you feel open to that, as long as you're not, shackled like a...
his last 20 seconds is basically covering that general principle. And so, yeah, getting back to that, this is for me a point in time when I'm explicitly doing this intentionally because I want to see the country. But here's kind of how I would summarize the point of van life. Do I think it's a good long-term plan? No. It is not a super long-term, I'm going to do this and live in my van for the rest of my life. No, it's not. And anybody who says that is their plan, that's their call. For some people, they love this. I love traveling and driving and things like this. So even if I were to get a land, settle it down and homestead, I will still want to travel a little bit. I might not travel in such a large vehicle. I might get like a truck with a cab in the back and do something more as a weekend type thing more than anything else. But for this phase in my life, for the specific plan and the specific goal, van life is exactly what I want to do. The cost is about the same as renting. So it's not like I'm saving a ton of money. It's about the same cost. It comes with some challenges, just like renting has some challenges. There's always some issues, always some challenges in life. So there's always going to be some of those things. But the question is, what do you want to do? In my case, setting out for a specific goal in a specific time, wanting to get out and see the world, van life is absolutely the way to go. To Luke's point, yes, everybody should be looking for a plot of land. You should be able to grow some of your own food, maybe raise some of your own meat, do these types of things. It's a very good thing to do. But getting around and seeing the country, because our country is incredible, at least here in the United States. I don't know about where your country is. It is sad that some people live their whole life never seeing the amazing sights that are around here. And I'm doing this at the age I'm doing it because I'm still able to hike up sheer trails on cliff sides and things like that without putting myself in too much danger. I still have the ability to get out and do these types of things. And that's really the point and the principle for me, is that van life allows me to visit my friends more often than I have in the past. It allows me to see the country. It allows me to do it at about the same cost. This is a good lifestyle. But it's not a perfect lifestyle. It's not one to explicitly glamorize, but it is one that gives you more life experiences than you imagine. And when I come off of the road, not only will I have a basis of framework for knowing what my next goal of homesteading is, which is going to give me a whole lot of things, but the things I'm learning right now will help me in the future to when I can homestead off grid with what I'm learning here. And that's really the difference. So overall, I think Luke Smith is 100%, not 100%, but very correct in a lot of his assessment. There's a lot of his premises. I think there's a few misconceptions in here, but nothing that's horrible out of the ordinary. I think he's painting it in a worse picture than it actually is, but it's not good to be painting it in a perfect picture. It is not for everybody. If you don't like to drive, like I was talking to my cousin, I haven't seen my cousin in a few years. I drive up on my way up here to Maine. My cousin's house is kind of on the way, so I stopped there for a night. And he's like, dude, I had to drive to Harrisburg the other day and I hate it. And you're talking about driving to Maine like it's going to be fun. I'm like, yeah, I don't mind. I don't care. I like driving. If you don't like driving, van life is definitely not for you. If you like driving, van life might be for you. But the principle is, Luke is very right in a lot of areas. His overarching final principle is right. We have to be sustainable. We have to have a way where we can take care of ourselves. We cannot rely on our distribution networks. We cannot rely on our supply chain. Our supply chain is weak. We have to be aware of this. Start planning for that now. Those of us in van life, I have to plan more. I'm thinking right now, how can I do this? I might, when I head back closer to my storage unit, I might go to Walmart and drop $50, get another watertight bin, buy a huge bag of flour, huge bag of rice, just a bunch of non-perishable stuff I can throw in there and just throw that bin in my storage unit. So if indeed we have some serious problems, I can at least go to the storage unit, pick up a bin full of rice and beans and stuff, and be good for a while. These are things we need to do. But yes, van life is also, to his point, is not sustainably living just for yourself in some aspects, although others it is. So overall, his video is excellent. And I love his content. It's good. I did want to bring out some of the few of the misconceptions in there, but really that's the case. If you want to see what I'm doing in my van life, check out my YouTube channel at Tux Traveler. Subscribe to the channel over there if you like. I see a few you have. I think our subscriber count went up five subscribers since I jumped on. But I have things here that I have travel, I have cooking. And again, even if you're not into the van life, have a look at some of these videos where I talk about things like how do you build a laptop charger on a house battery. This applies to an off-grid situation. If you set yourself up a little bank of lithium-ion batteries in the corner of your house and you throw a solar panel on it, how can you charge your laptop of that without having to go through an inverter, which causes some extra power? I teach you how to do that in this video. We do things like, yay, the cooking videos are good with cooking in small spaces. There you go. And then you might want to look at what does the kitty cat see, you know? And if you want to see some national park stuff, we have that over there as well. But there's a lot on here for a lot of different people. You can have a look over there at Tux Traveler on YouTube. Well, let's have a look at our comments, and then we will get on out of here. It's actually getting hot. Another downside of van life. Man, it's getting hot in here sometimes. Need to drive so I can run the air conditioner. Read the Wheel, and I by John Crean, founder of Fleetwood Mac. Oh, The Wheel and I by John Crean, founder of Fleetwood Mac. Huh, cool. Is it Fleetwood or Fleetwood Mac? I don't know. Sounded like VGG's intro. See, somebody is using that same intro clip on something. I forget who. Hello, James. How's it going there? Recap. Hello there. If your friends judge you on the size of your home and the fancy trinkets within, you should probably review your friendships. I agree. Knocked off twice due to updates. What, are you using Windows? Try, but people has a domino effect. Let's see. See you later, Moonbase. Think people leave the things they want to do way too late, or they wait until what I now call the retirement delusion. Absolutely. That is correct. You don't want to wait until you're retired to go some of the places I've seen, because you will not be able to walk in some of the places where I've been recently without that. That's kind of the thing. Never had to resort to living homeless. Being military, both of us basically living in tents and living in the woods under bridges, plus living on beaches, hunting for food. Yeah. If you don't like shaving, van life might be for you. Yeah, actually, I have a full set of clippers. I can actually go. My last haircut I gave to myself in the van. I mean, I might be about due for another one. I don't know. But I don't know, if I pull out the clippers, I might just shave everything off. What do you do when you can't charge the batteries with solar? That is why I installed an engine charger. The other thing I have is I have a converter. So if I'm somewhere like if I'm at a place where I have friends, I can plug my van into their house. If I'm not, I can just go and pay usually $20 or so for a campsite with a power hookup, and just go and plug into the campsite power hookup. So those are the things that I have. So I have 3 ways of charging my batteries. Of course, that power hookup can also be used on any gas-powered generator. Based. All right. Well, I hit our bottom of our comments. We've actually been streaming for an hour and a half now, and being as I complained yesterday on my live stream about long live streams, I better get out of here before I call myself a hypocrite. All right, guys. Thanks for hanging out, everybody. We will see you guys maybe Monday. I might take Monday off. I don't know yet. In fact, no, you know what? Unless I come up with a really short walking video, I'm going to take Monday off because I plan on walking a mile out on a granite platform to a lighthouse in the middle of the ocean. So that's kind of what I'm planning on doing. May or may not actually happen, but we'll see. Anyway, guys, have a good one, and we will catch you.